more dogs." He said it with complete confidence that morning, convinced the decision was final. By evening, a massive, shaggy dog stood quietly in the middle of their living room, and suddenly that rule didn't seem so important anymore. They had spotted her walking slowly along the side of a busy highway. She was a large Alaskan Malamute, moving with the weary pace of someone who had been traveling for far too long without knowing where she was headed. When they stopped their car, she didn't run. Up close, her condition told its own story. Her fur was badly matted, her frame was thin enough to reveal her ribs, and her eyes carried a sadness that couldn't be explained by exhaustion alone. It was the look of someone who had trusted deeply and been abandoned. She simply stood there, calm and silent, as if she had already accepted whatever happened next. Believing she belonged to someone, they took her home and searched for her family. They shared her photo online, checked for a microchip, and contacted local shelters. Days passed without a single lead. Eventually, they had to face the heartbreaking truth. Maggie, the name they chose for her, hadn't wandered away by accident. Someone had deliberately left her behind. Even after everything she'd been through, there was still a small spark of hope in her eyes. It lived beside a quiet sadness, the kind only seen in those who have loved wholeheartedly and lost everything. Once they realized that sending her away was never an option. During her first few days in the house, Maggie acted like a visitor afraid of overstaying her welcome. She explored each room carefully, keeping her head low and moving with quiet caution. But before long, she found the person she trusted most, the husband. At first, she'd simply lie nearby while he worked. Soon, she was resting beside his chair, and before long, she rarely left his side. She followed him from room to room without asking for attention, always content just to be close. Every afternoon when he came home, she greeted him as though she'd been waiting all day for that single moment. Her tail wagged so hard her whole body swayed, and her eyes lit up with pure joy. What she felt wasn't ordinary affection, it was unwavering loyalty. Maggie had a gentle intelligence that revealed itself little by little. She would push a favorite toy toward him, then patiently wait for him to notice. She seemed to know exactly when to tilt her head to melt everyone's heart. One day, she calmly parked herself in front of the robotic vacuum and refused to move. She watched it without the slightest concern, silently declaring that no machine could ever take her place. She was absolutely right. The months turned into years. Whenever the woman had a difficult day, Maggie would quietly curl up beside her, breathing softly as if offering comfort without saying a word. Whenever the husband carried the invisible weight that difficult days often bring, Maggie would gently rest her head in his hand, let out a slow sigh, and somehow make everything feel just a little lighter. Then one peaceful afternoon, the woman glanced across the room. Her husband was dozing on the couch while Maggie slept peacefully with her head resting in his lap. In that simple moment, she realized something she had never fully understood before. They hadn't saved Maggie. Maggie had been the one who saved them. She had entered their lives carrying the pain of abandonment, yet she chose to love again, without hesitation, without resentment, and without expecting anything in return. She proved that love doesn't need dramatic gestures to change a life. Sometimes it arrives quietly, stays faithfully, and transforms a house into a home. The dog no one wanted eventually became the heart of the family. And the man who once insisted there would never be another pet, he never mentioned that rule again. Some promises exist only until the right soul comes along and gently changes your heart.